Welcome everyone, Jeff ArizonaHotHomestead. In this video and the next few videos I've put together a little playlist. And the reason why I've done this is because I've been out here for like 8 years now, 8+ years. And so I did a playlist for every single year, but I did everything on there, like I put everything in there. And I got thinking, that's just a lot of boring stuff you guys don't want to see. So what I thought of was, let's put together the top videos by viewers like you over the first 5 years. So I put together this playlist, and this is just one of those videos. I may have modified it slightly, but basically it's just a copy of that other video. So if you've already seen it, so be it. If you're new to my channel, welcome aboard. And don't forget to subscribe, like, share, hit that little bell thing, all that good stuff. Basically, I'm building an off-grid homestead, and haven't got to the good stuff yet. I'm still just building it with these two hands, and just a little bit of help from time to time with some family and friends. And man, it's a lot of work, but it sure is pleasurable. So stay tuned. This is one of those videos. The best of the first 5 years. ArizonaHotHomestead, my name is Jeff. Today's video, let's just do a continuation of my last video. The last video we talked about loads. We talked about the loads that I have here within my system that I use here off-grid, such as my computer, my AC unit on my RV, lighting and the water pump and different things like this, and basically how you can measure that stuff to figure out eventually what size battery bank to have for your solar system and how many solar panels. So the last video covered how to calculate all that stuff and all your loads. This video now says, let's take that information and figure out and determine what size battery bank to have, as well as how many solar panels. So let's get into it. So on this chart here from the last video there, we came up with 6,573 watts that are going to be used in a typical day. Now, a couple footnotes with this. The air conditioning unit, that during the winter months, you're obviously not going to use that. The hours used, obviously that's going to vary person to person. Each item is going to vary. So these are my numbers, and these are guesstimation on the hours that I might use them. Now there's also what some people are going to talk about is loss. Like your inverter is going to have a little bit of loss because it doesn't run 100% efficient. You also have the distance that the wires has to travel. There's going to be some loss in your voltage there. There's going to be some loss even with every single switch that's involved and every single breaker and outlet, whatever. The bottom line is, I don't care about the losses. This is just to give you a guesstimation so you have a ballpark figure as to what size battery bank you need. So with this 6,573 watts that we typically need for a day, now you have to figure out, do we want a 12 volts, a 24 volt, or even a 48 volt battery bank? Well, 12 volts for as many watts as going to be used here, you probably don't want to do that. Now there is really no set rule on this, but normally a 12 volt system is for a much smaller system. So maybe, and this is just an example, so I am no expert by the way, so the 6,500 watts that I use in a day, probably if it was more like maybe 1,500 or maybe 2,000 I might use in a day, then probably a 12 volt system might just be the best thing. But 6,500, I'm going with a 24 volt system. I probably should even think about a 48 volt system. And the difference between those is what a lot of people will say, efficiency. Well, to me, efficiency means nothing because you're not giving me a measurement. But what it is actually is when you convert 24 volts into 120 volts or a 110, And when you take 24 volts and you travel it through a wire to another destination, the amount of loss that you have is less with a 24 volt than it is with a 12 volt. That's what they mean when they talk efficiency, from the way I understand things. I may be way off base, but that's the way I'm understanding things. When I looked at my inverter, for an example, my inverter came also in a 12 volts type of inverter. I looked at those two, and the specs that were on there, the 24 volt inverted everything at a more efficient rate than the 12 volt, which meant I got more amps out of it. I got more volts out of it. That's why I went with the 24 volt. So when you take this 6,573 watts and you're going to divide it by 24 volts, because we decided we're going to use 24 volt battery bank, you're going to get a total of 273.88 amps that I'm going to use in a typical day. We're going to round it to 274, but 273.88. Now here's the big factor. When you're doing your batteries, you cannot discharge your batteries more than 50%. It's important that you understand that if you discharge it to 51, you have just destroyed that battery's lifespan. It's gone from, because the battery has so many cycles in it, and every time you go too far, it reduces that cycles drastically. Even at 50%, it's going to reduce the lifespan more than if it's at 75%. And that's charge rate. 25 is the discharge rate on the 75% charge rate. So you want to think about that. You probably don't want to do the 50%. You probably want to think about the 75%. And go with the 75% charge rate, which is 25% discharge. That's what I consider is preferred. Now, everybody out there is going to have their opinion on this, but to me, it's your preferred. It should be your preferred amount, because it gives you a little bit of variance, so that if you do use a little bit more power during your day, that's okay, because you've got that extra 25% to reach that 50% discharge rate. And if you don't, no big deal, then you just have a little extra. So having this 25% discharge rate, I think, is a decent number to shoot for. Obviously, you could go 10% discharge rate, which would even be better. But not everyone's got the money for that many batteries. So we'll go with the 25 in this argument here. So now, how do I figure that out? So what you're going to do is you're going to take your 273.88 amps that I need for the day, and I'm actually going to multiply that by 4. Multiplying it by 4 will give me a 25% discharge rate. If I multiply it by 2, it will give me a 50% discharge rate. So we're going to go 4. And I think the number came out 1,095 and some decimal. I just rounded it to 1,096. So my 24 volt battery bank, I need at least 1,096 amps in that 24 volts. Now, one thing that you also need to consider is, in your system, what about clouds? What about storms? What about those wintry conditions when you have 3, 4, 5 days of snowstorms? You have to consider that. The winter is when you have your least sunshine, December. And sometimes it snows a lot in December, doesn't it? Or at least in some areas. So you have to consider some days where you're not going to get any solar at all. Now, yes, you can have wind turbines and things like that. I'm not going to get into that. I'm only talking the solar right now. So you need to consider in your area the number of stormy days, if you will. How many days are you going to have where you have probably no solar? You might get a little, but for the most part, no solar. And you want to figure that out. Because here's what you're going to do. That number I just gave to you, the 1,096, that's pretty much your bare minimum that you need to go. You really don't want to go any lower than that. However, by multiplying it by 2 days of no sunshine, now that puts me at 2,192, rounding numbers, of a minimum battery bank for the amps. Almost 2,200. That's a lot of batteries, but you'll be set for 2 solid days of no sunshine. So that's something that you want to consider, is if you've got the money, if you got the ability, obviously, if you got the resources to do it, that's what you're looking at. Now, obviously that's not going to work for everyone. It sure the heck didn't work out for me that way, because I couldn't afford that many batteries. So I went with the 936 amps for 24 volts is what my battery bank is. So, but here are some things to think about. First off, those numbers I gave to you about the total usage, redo that and cut back on stuff. Maybe there's things on there that you put down that you don't need, or you can cut back the number of hours of usage. So you can definitely do something like that. Some other ideas is to change the hours that you do things. For an example, do them during the day, and when the sun goes down, you go to bed. When the sun gets up, you get up. And that will help reduce the usage when you're not getting any sunshine at all. Some of the other things that you could do is supplement your power with a generator. You should have a generator anyhow, because you should be a prepper. You should be planning. You should be preparing for something. Prepare for not enough sunshine. Because let me tell you, to some people, not to everyone, but to some people, no power, that is the SHTF. Also, even just think about this. Why are you going off-grid? Why are you doing a homestead or a farm or living in a cabin or whatever it is that you want to call it? Aren't you kind of trying to get away from some electronics? So if so, why are you even watching this video? Well, I appreciate that you're watching it, but think about that. You're getting away from the city for what? Just to continue to do electronics? So you want to think about that. Also, what about your animals, your kids, garden, read a book? Maybe do more of that. So basically the point is, you need to change your lifestyle. You need to adjust your lifestyle to maybe fit the batteries that you can afford. If you can't afford that 21, almost 2,200 battery bank, then you need to adjust your lifestyle so that you can at least do that 1,096. If you can't do that 1,096, then you better adjust your lifestyle even more to handle a smaller battery bank. Either way, there's adjustments involved. So just some things to think about there. So like I said, I've gotten the 936 amp batteries, 24 volts. So based on the numbers that I was giving you, so that we went over on everything, I kind of have the minimum system, I'm 160 amps off of being the minimum, that 1,096. So I'm pretty darn close. So I will be using a generator to supplement my power, and especially on those rainy days and those wintry days, I'll probably be using a generator, but I plan on it. Now when finances become better down the road, then I'd like to basically double my system, add some more batteries, add some more solar, add some more turbines, or add a turbine, and then that way I'll be a little bit in better shape at that point. But right now I need to adjust my own system, don't I? Now we know what size batteries that we have, or what size batteries that we need. What about our panels? How are we going to charge these things? We know 6,573 watts is what's needed for the day. So when you think about your solar, you need to have at least, at the bare minimum, enough power coming in for the day to cover your usage. That's why a lot of people will talk about, oh, I can run an AC unit off solar, I can do this off solar, I can do that off solar. Well, all they're basically trying to do is, during that sunshiny day, solar panels big enough to cover the amps to run that device. So that's all they're doing. But it may not run it for very long because of clouds, storms, and things like that. So basically, you want to, when you do your panels, you want to get panels as large as you possibly can. If you just go with a small 12 volt system, then you're going to need something that will step down. Normally your charge controller will do that. Take 24 volts coming in, it will step it down to the 13 or 14 to charge those batteries. but most of your larger panels are going to be rated at 24 and above, and that's what you want. 260 watts is what I have, and so you want something 250 or greater. They're doing good at getting more panels over 300 watts, and what's great is they're like $1 a watt or less. So panels are relatively inexpensive. But you also want to consider this. What about your sunshine? How many hours of sunshine do you get? This kind of goes with that stormy thing, doesn't it? But how many hours of sunshine do you get? Those of you who live up in Canada and those of you who live in the northern part, you know, during the winter months, you may not get very many sunshine hours. Me in Arizona, well, I can pretty much count on at least 5 hours of sun. It doesn't matter the time of the year. Now, some of you right now are talking, what about a sun tracker? You can have a solar sun tracker where it follows the sun the minute the sun is up. And then there's also manual sun trackers where you got to go out there and adjust it all the time. Mine is a manual. I barely adjust mine. There are some websites out there, and I didn't put a link or anything there, but there's some websites that you can search that will give you the angles and the degrees that you can set up your panels for. So when they say, if you want your panels just to be stationary year-round, here's where it needs to be. If for your location you plug in your zip code or your GPS coordinates, and it will tell you. If you want to change them twice a year, it will tell you when to do them and what time of the year to do it, as well as what those adjustments are. If you want to do it monthly, they'll even tell you that too. Or you can just go and look at the sun and adjust it, I guess. But basically, that's what I've kind of done. I've looked at where the sun is pretty much in my sky, and I just have adjusted it accordingly, and I've left it there, and I haven't adjusted it since. But yeah, you got to think about your hours. And as far as your sun tracker, you're on your own for that. But the number of hours is going to matter, because what you're going to do is you're going to take the number of hours that your sun is shining, and then with the number of hours that your sun is shining, and based on my panels, which is 260 watts, I'm going to multiply those 5 hours by that 260 watts. So each panel for the day is going to bring in 1,300 watts. So now I take that 1,300 watts and I divide it into that 6,500 watts for the day. That means I need 5 panels. So 5 panels at 260 watts for 5 hours for that day is going to give me my 6,573 watts. Some of you may be thinking, well, what if I don't have that 260 watts panels? What if I have something else? Well, take your 6,500 and divide up your total watts for the day, and just divide by the number of hours that you have, and that's going to give you, like for an example on mine, that's going to be 1,315 watts for the day. So regardless of the panels I got, I have to get that 13,000 or that 1,300 watts. I have to get that every single day. So if it's 300 watt panels, 260 or whatever, I got a total of that 1,300. So that's another way of calculating it, is to say 6,573 watts for the day, divided by 5 hours of sunlight that you're going to get, will give you your total watts that you need for the day. Your total watts that you need for the day, now you just divide it by whatever panel size that you can find. So if you find 300 watts, divide by 300. If it's 260, you'll divide by 260. Now, when you're mounting your panels, you're going to mount your panels either on a pole mounts, or you're going to mount them on the ground, or mount them up on the roof, or whatever the case may be. Mine are mounted on a pole mount. On a pole mount, you got to think about your winds, and you got to be able to be balanced on that. So you got to be, your panels have to be on their equal. They got to be balanced, even, whatever you want to call it. It's just got to be balanced so that when that wind hits that, see, mine's already handled a few days of 70 mile an hour winds, and everything is just fine with the panels and the pole mount. So it gives me confidence that 6 is perfect for that particular structure, for that design. So you want to consider that. So if you have 5 panels, for an example, probably just go ahead and get that 6th one so that you got 6 on there, because that's going to help keep you a little bit more balanced than having 5. But you want to work with whoever it is that you're getting your mount from to make sure that you are being balanced on that. For your roof mounts and your ground mounts and things like that, all you just need is something pretty solid that they won't get knocked over. So even then you can just go 5. But again, I like even numbers when it comes to panels. Just stick with evens. Don't be an oddball. Let those city slickers be the oddball. So now to recap, you now know how to calculate your loads. You want to calculate them in watts. Doesn't matter the voltage, you're going to calculate them all in the watts. And then based on your watts, then you can figure out how many amps you need off your 24 or 48 or whatever size battery bank you're going to go with. And then you use that watts and you divide by the number of hours of sunlight you're getting. So you now know how many total watts that you need for your panels. And then from there, whatever size panels you get, divide that into your total watts for the panels for the day, and that will give you the number of panels. So hopefully that helps you guys out. I think it should. After all, you now know how to figure out your loads. You now know how to figure out what size battery bank to do, and you now know how many panels to have. And now you just have your whole solar array set up perfectly. Now, the only question is, that almighty dollar, huh? How do you pay for all that crap? Oh, I'm not getting into that. You guys are on your own for that part. So, which reminds me, don't forget to support me so that maybe I can do some other stuff and show you guys how. But Jeff, Arizona Hot Homestead, I'm glad you were with me. I'll see you later. Thank you for watching my video today, and I appreciate you watching it all the way through there. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and comment. Every little bit helps support my channel. My name is Jeff, and you've been watching Arizona Hot Homestead. Thanks for watching, everyone. Hopefully you hit that subscribe button and that you shared the video and do the bell and all that good stuff. Hopefully you liked the video. This here was a number of videos in what I'm in a playlist that I'm calling the best of the first 5 years, based on viewers. So the ones that have got the most views, those are the ones that I put in this playlist. And hope you enjoyed it. And guess I'll see you guys on the next video. See you. Bye. Have fun.